Hello, everyone. Greetings for the day and welcome back to our learning journey. This is Divya, and you are watching Trendbit. I'm so excited to welcome you all to a very special lesson which focuses on look and say method. Look and say method is an engaging approach to help or to teach children reading. Whether you are a seasoned educator or a passionate content creator, this method offers a unique perspective that you can integrate into your classroom and to your teaching toolkit. So, in this lesson, what are we going to learn? Let's learn about what is look and say method. How do we use this method? So, what do we expect from this learning lesson? There are certain expectations. So, we would explore the look and say method. We shall learn the technique that emphasizes in recognizing the whole words by sight. We shall delve into its principles. Let's understand its applications and discuss how it can enhance the reading experiences for young learners and how we can use this method in our preschools. Okay, so let's get started with this. As I mentioned, let's take a look at the definition. Look and say method is also known as the whole word approach. So, what do we do this? So, it's a method wherein we teach reading to children, wherein they would recognize the whole words by sight rather than decoding them phonetically. So we don't use phonetic method. So what do we do? So when we give a word, this method, instead of breaking the word into individual phonemes and blending them together, we don't do all this. So in this method, we would recognize the word completely as a whole word. So you by heart it or you memorize that word itself or you just look at the word and you just recognize it. So we don't do any phonetic way of learning, right? So this is something that you have to understand. And this is the major difference between the phonic method and the look and say method. So if you have missed the yesterday's class, I will give the link in the description. You can learn what is phonic method all about. Then you will get the difference about the second method, that's the look and say. So what I could say is like when we don't introduce these phonetic way of teaching, we also would have many words that we learn it by heart, right? And the same sometimes even these words can reappear when we do story reading, when we are working on comprehension. So what do we do in our classes is we give or we introduce a set of high frequency words. Sometimes we also call this high frequency words as sight words, which needs to be memorized, which needs to be recognized visually, right? And they are very common and they don't follow any of the phonetic rules at all. So you just read it by hearted. So we can introduce the sight words. So in look and say method, sight words would be one way that we could, one of the set of words that you can bring in and you can work on it. It's difficult, and since the children are not learning the method where they could decode it, the method completely depends on memorizing, right? So when you have to do so much of memorizing, so much of rote learning, it's kind of difficult for a child to remember so many words. So that's the reason in look and say method, you need to repeat the words. We need to do a lot of repetition. So children should get exposed to repeatedly repeating those words, okay? Because we're not using phonetic decoding at all, isn't it? So that could be one way. So what it totally depends is on our visual memory. So you need to encourage children. Children read, look. Okay, so you can put a lot of words onto your school word walls and you can ask them to recall the entire word. We don't analyze individual letter sounds in that particular word at all. Okay, it's purely based on the visual memory. And children are really good at it, right? So we can also call this as flashcard approach. Like how you show the picture cards to children, you can similarly show the word cards also to children, and they would remember by vision, they would remember by their visual memory. And this is one of the great way that most of the children also do work on. See, this method has its own advantages, and at the same time it also has a lot of criticism. Now and a lot of disadvantages also, I could say so. Why? Because in this educational system, And every time that we are adapting to new methodologies, new ways of introducing lessons to our children, we have seen many other methods which is actually come in further. Like, say, for example, phonetic way of teaching to children. So it's easy to introduce a lot of words wherein the child learns only the 42 sounds, and then with those and alternative letter spellings the child can actually make and break any word and learn it so easily. Correct? So when the phonic skills are limited, what happens? You have to only memorize those words then, isn't it? You have to only memorize those words. And the sight words, developing a strong skills on these sight words can also be pretty much challenging because the children are not being introduced to decode all this, right? So that becomes very crucial. So whenever we work with these unfamiliar words, which cannot be decoded, that is when the children do face difficulties also. And what about the irregular words? Now, say, for example, as I mentioned earlier, English is one such language wherein it is, I could say, it is not that very consistent. It doesn't follow good phonetic patterns. It's very challenging for children to actually learn everything, correct? Now, say, for example, when I have these irregular words like said, come, come. If I use phonic way, it is come. How do you decode? Come. K is C, A is U, M is M, right? But the actual spelling is COME. Correct? So we have to by heart. We have to by heart these words. We have to memorize these words. These words needs to be taught by sight. So sometimes, yes, it has to be taken by sight. So it's difficult. What about the spellings? Pronunciations is also very difficult. Now, when I have a word like READ, when I'm using my present tense, I say read. But the same word will have same spelling READ. But if I'm referring to my past tense, it is read. Correct? So, in English, we will have many words which will have similar spellings, but they would have a different pronunciation. So, relying solely on sight words may also lead to confusion when we encounter words with multiple pronunciation. So, this is also one of the inconsistency when we work with the spellings in our English language. What about words which have multiple meanings, as I said? Now, just take a word bat. When I use this word bat, immediately what comes to our mind? We refer to a flying mammal, or it could be a sports equipment which is used to play in cricket or in baseball, right? So decoding such words might totally depend upon the reader, or sometimes we have to listen to the context of the other words in that sentence. Correct? Only when we are able to decode the context of the sentence, maybe then we would be able to get, oh, this bat is referring to an animal, mammal, or bat is referring to a sports equipment. Totally depends on the context. So this also we have to keep in mind. And every time that we work with complex vocabulary, see, as children grow and when we start introducing them to work with new words, new comprehensions, the words can become longer, right? And even the sentences might become complex. So, in that case, it becomes more increasingly difficult to memorize a lot of words by sight. This is also one of the difficulty our children have. But when I'm using phonics approach, children can still tackle the longer words. How do they tackle? They break down the words, they manage them into smaller phonemes or the smaller phonetic components, then they blend them together and they could read and write so easily. But when it comes down to look and say method, this is one of the difficulty we face. For example, now if I'm giving you a word like photosynthesis or a word like metamorphosis, right? Children might find it difficult because these words are really long enough. They're complex vocabularies. But what if I'm using phonics? I can go on syllabicating like metamorphosis or photosynthesis, photosynthesis. I would break the word. So the child would develop a decoding skill. So it becomes easy for them to understand, isn't it? Now, here in look and say, it becomes difficult because they have to understand the meaning of these words. Not only that, beyond understanding the context, they should also learn the meaning of this and also the spellings of it, right? So this is also one of the struggle. We have also seen struggles when we work with homophones. Now, what is homophone? The words that sound the same, but they have different meanings. They have different spellings. That's a homophone. For example, when I give you a word like there are three different spellings: THERE, THEIR, THEY apostrophe and RE, right? So, how do we work on that? If it's phonics based approach, it helps our children to understand the relationship between the sounds and spellings. But here, how do we work on it? Kind of difficult, isn't it? Let's see a small or a simple example over here. I could say, their dog is over there. Okay, now which there should come first? It's their dog is over there. The words there and there, they sound the same. But don't you think they have a different meaning? They have a different spelling, right? So children will always struggle with spellings when it comes with homophones. In that cases, the sight words would be really helpful than going with phonetic words. Now, also, whenever we have dependency on context or when we're working with ambiguous context, like there also we would definitely have difficulties working with children there. Like say, consider a sentence like, she saw the bear with the telescope. Now the focus is on bear. Okay, when I say bear, there are two meanings. One is the animal, the other one is the pain, right? The verb, it's the action. So I'm bearing. Bearing means it's a lot of pain that you're taking it up, isn't it? There are two different meanings. So what we need to figure out there when I consider that word, when I'm focusing on that word, I first look at the letters. It's the same thing, but spellings are also same. So I still get confused now. So what do I work on? She saw the bear with the telescope. Now, in case here, if I interpret bear as an animal bear, correct? So the animal that is really big, which is a furry animal, and this bear is actually like, using a telescope. Yeah, that's how it is. She saw the bear with a telescope. A girl saw a bear with a telescope. She would be able to imagine that. Now, in case if I'm thinking bear as a verb, she saw the bear with the telescope, right? So when we're decoding it a little wrong way, we kind of consider that to be like carry or endure, right? The interpretation of the sentence could totally be different. So this is also something that we have to consider when there is a dependency on the context. So understanding the word independently will help you to know what meaning of bear makes a lot of sentence. So it will actually not be the verb, but it should be an animal over here, right? So when the children will start having that ability to understand the meaning of that word in that sentence, decoding of the words in their own way becomes like a superpower, and they would be able to work with it with so much of ease. Okay, so that's about the look and say method. So it's more or less like you give the word, the child will look at the word, they practice it, they do a rote learning, and they learn by visual memory. Just like how we give pictures for the children to visualize and learn, we give the words also for them. So we can't give these words to be decoded in phonetic way. So the child will have to learn it the same way. Okay. So you can't go phonetically. Like when I say each, so it's like EACH. The child will have to go by the letter name, not by the letter sound. Okay. So these can also be called as sight words, or we also call it as high frequency words. Not only these, you will get a lot of words in the internet. You can just go through sight words or high frequency words. You can browse through. You will get list of words, and give every day like 8 to 10 words. You can start introducing the sight words and start teaching them where these sight words are used in context. Okay, and then they should be able to work on. So I have given some more words that you can keep practicing. So this is all about your look and say method. If you ask me which method is good, is it the phonic way, is it the look and say method, I would say we should definitely have a balance between the look and say method, that is the whole word approach, and the phonic method. Always combine them. Wherever you're unable to do phonetically decode a word, use a look and say method. Okay? Because when you are combining both of them, we would be able to work really better, and comprehensive reading becomes easy for our children, and children will have a rounded approach, right? They are learning through sight word recognition. They would have strong phonetic decoding skills that is going to empower them to become proficient readers. Okay, so I would say each of the method has its own advantage. Wherever we don't use phonics, use look and say method and try to integrate both of them into your child's reading. Okay, so this is the second method. So yesterday we saw phonic method, today we saw look and say method. So we will come back with the third method, that is language experience approach, in the next class. I will see you soon. Okay, so if at all, if you would like to stay tuned with us and get certified and become a professional teacher, you can get involved into our classes. You can take up our online or offline classes. You can call us on the following given number and you can do your diploma courses. If at all, if you would like to take the admission of your child in any of our centers, which is located in Bangalore, you can reach us out on the following numbers given below. We have three centers in Munikulala, one in Munikulala, Dodanekundi, and one near Manyata Tech Park. Okay, so that's it for today's learning. Please if at all, if you have any questions or queries, you can write it to us. Whatever information that we have been sharing, it's limited to what knowledge that I and my team do have. In case if I've said anything wrong or if you know anything more, please write it down. So we shall keep learning. Let's learn. Let's share all the learnings that we have it and keep up our learning spirit really high. God bless, take care, and have a wonderful evening, all of you. Thank you.